And today, the Supreme Court has answered that question by a vote of 6-3.
The U.S. Supreme Court has just issued a major ruling.
Major Second Amendment case.
Major Supreme Court ruling.
Gun control targets, Ruger. But will they succeed? Ruger, one of America's most iconic firearm manufacturers, is now in the crosshairs. A powerful gun control organization has issued a dramatic ultimatum demanding that Ruger immediately halt production of one of its latest pistols. But unlike other companies who have buckled under similar pressure, Ruger's history suggests a completely different outcome. This could escalate into a landmark legal and political confrontation that will affect every single gun owner. In today's video, we're breaking down exactly what's unfolding here, who's orchestrating this campaign, what makes the RCM pistol the center of attention, and how this fits into a broader strategy to limit firearms by targeting manufacturers directly. If the Second Amendment matters to you, this is a story you absolutely need to understand. Welcome to Law Advisor, the channel where we dissect the law, the politics, and the truth behind today's gun rights headlines. Hit that subscribe button now so you're never left in the dark. Let's dive in. Part 1. Ruger's history of standing firm. Ruger is no stranger to these kinds of confrontations. The company has consistently found itself targeted by anti-gun advocacy campaigns, but they've never been quick to surrender. Their track record reveals a pattern of calculated, unapologetic pushback against coordinated efforts to curtail gun ownership through legal or corporate manipulation. Ruger previously rejected shareholder pressure demanding a report on violence impacts. The company has historically refused to bow to activist demands for implementing firearm tracking technologies, responding firmly to pressure in both 2018 and 2022. Ruger's position has been clear: their products are legal, and misuse is the responsibility of the individual, not the maker. Unlike some competitors, Ruger has maintained that threats of litigation do not supersede constitutional protections. Their philosophy appears rooted in one fundamental principle: accountability cannot be shifted to manufacturers when criminals violate the law. And this stance isn't merely legal, it's strategic, because once a company accepts blame for product misuse, it tears open a wound that could consume the entire industry. Part 2. The Glock precedent and what it means. Everytown is executing a domino strategy. They toppled Glock first, and now they're coming for Ruger. But while the Glock scenario may look similar on the surface, it differs significantly in both structure and consequences. Glock's concessions may have emboldened future campaigns, and Ruger understands this perfectly. Glock discontinued their legacy product line and committed to a redesign following external pressure. The RCM has been accused of similarities, yet there's zero comparable data linking it to criminal activity. Glock's compliance is now being wielded as ammunition to force the same response from Ruger. The legal tactic here is straightforward. Use one company's capitulation as evidence that others must comply. This is an incredibly dangerous path. If Ruger gives in, gun control organizations may never need courts or congressional action again. They can simply impose changes through brand intimidation, media campaigns, and the threat of lawsuits. This is why Glock's decision transcends a simple corporate pivot. It's now being weaponized to transform industry-wide standards. And Ruger represents the next critical battleground. Part 3. Everytown's actual agenda. This campaign isn't about a single firearm. This is about restructuring the entire gun market through coercion and intimidation. Everytown knows they're losing ground in the courts, so they're attempting to circumvent legal defeats by pressuring companies directly. The letter sent to Ruger presented zero evidence of criminal use, only hypothetical concerns. They referenced social media videos, not law enforcement data or judicial documentation. The demand called for immediate product discontinuation without any regulatory procedure. It used Glock's surrender as the benchmark, applying pressure on Ruger to follow suit. What's the implication here? It means Everytown isn't operating on facts, they're operating on fear. And it also means Ruger isn't their only target. It's every company watching the situation develop. The message is transparent. If Ruger bends, smaller manufacturers will crumble too. It establishes a precedent that becomes far more destructive than any legislation, because it happens outside public view. Part 4. Ruger's strategic position. Ruger possesses more leverage than most people understand. Unlike Glock, the RCM isn't distributed in California or Maryland. This minimizes their exposure to the jurisdictions most likely to pursue litigation or implement prohibitions. Ruger also has an established history of separating corporate decisions from political pressure. Ruger's previous responses to legal threats have been grounded in constitutional defense. The company has been explicit. Product misuse doesn't constitute a manufacturing defect. Their products comply with federal legal requirements and are distributed through lawful channels. They don't depend heavily on police contracts or government agreements that create vulnerability. This grants Ruger significant flexibility. They can select their battles strategically and aren't constrained by financial entanglements the way certain manufacturers might be. The intelligent response now would be to reject the fundamental premise that accusations demand immediate action. Because once you accept that premise, the narrative shifts, and the company becomes labeled a victim of corporate intimidation rather than a contributor to violence. Part 5. The dangerous could be converted. Standard. At the core of Everytown's letter lies a single claim. The RCM could be converted, not that it has been converted, not that it's being utilized in crimes, simply that the possibility exists. No evidence was presented showing the RCM recovered at any crime scene. The only proof offered was the existence of modification tutorials online. ATF statistics indicate less than 1% of crime guns involve any form of conversion. Even within those figures, there's no confirmation the conversion was actually employed during criminal activity. If Ruger capitulates here, it establishes that mere possibility is sufficient grounds for mandating design alterations. That fundamentally changes the rules of engagement. Because then the standard is no longer about what a firearm has actually done, but what someone claims it might do. That's not justice. That's pre-crime policing, and it has no foundation in American legal principles. Part 6. Why this strategy could backfire. Spectacularly, there's a substantial risk for Everytown and similar organizations applying this pressure. If Ruger decides to make this fight public, if they transparently present the facts, the backlash could be seismic. Gun owners, manufacturers, and even neutral parties might begin questioning the entire foundation of pressure-based product elimination. Public transparency could shift public opinion toward defending Ruger's constitutional right to manufacture. Disclosure would expose the complete absence of crime data supporting their demands. Retailers and distributors may unite behind Ruger, recognizing they could be targeted next. Second Amendment organizations could leverage this as both a fundraising opportunity and a political mobilization catalyst. And history provides examples of this dynamic. Smith & Wesson once yielded to pressure and suffered massive damage to consumer trust. But when companies push back, like Daniel Defense or Sig Sauer have, they frequently gain support not only in legal arenas but in cultural sentiment. If Everytown overreaches without substantive evidence, they risk provoking a far more substantial legal and political counteroffensive. Part 7. What gun owners must do. Right now. This situation transcends Ruger. It represents a trend, a tactic, a subtle method to erode gun rights without directly challenging the Second Amendment. And that means you, as a responsible gun owner, need to remain informed and vigilant. Monitor product removals that occur without legislative or regulatory processes. Track cases where activist organizations bypass the courts to target manufacturers directly. Stay engaged with gun rights organizations that monitor these corporate pressure campaigns. Recognize that today's target establishes tomorrow's precedent. You should also exercise caution before accepting mainstream narratives at face value. When advocacy groups present emotion as evidence, they're often masking the absence of concrete data. The battle for your rights won't always manifest as courtroom spectacle or sweeping legislation. Sometimes it emerges in corporate boardrooms, private correspondence, and quiet product discontinuations, and that's precisely why you need to stay alert. The battlefield is shifting behind closed doors. Conclusion. This is just the beginning. This confrontation involving Ruger may appear to be an isolated incident. One pistol, one manufacturer, one pressure campaign. But it's not isolated at all. It's part of a significantly broader tactical evolution by those seeking to restrict Second Amendment rights without ever facing a legislative vote. They're relocating the battlefield into corporate strategy sessions, into product liability, intimidation, into social media pressure, demanding that companies function as de facto legislators. And if we allow them to succeed here, if we permit Everytown to bully Ruger into compliance, it won't end with this case. Glock provided them the opening. Now they're pushing through that breach. But Ruger doesn't have to follow their path, and neither do we. This is the moment to amplify awareness, to support companies that defend your rights, to speak up while we still have the opportunity to resist governance by intimidation. If you value your rights, your tools, and your freedom, now is the time to pay attention. Stay tuned. We'll continue exposing these covert tactics before they become normalized practice. We're just getting started,